Well, as Chris mentioned, I finished my first book manuscript last year while I was here. But now, for my thesis, I got to write a new one. So I'm going to read a couple, or I guess 4 poems. 3 of them are short, don't worry, from the new book, or the new manuscript. It's not a book. My manuscript's divided into 4 sections, so I thought I'd just choose one from each section, because that seemed logical somehow. Okay, this poem is called A Tourist Guide for Men with Savior Complexes. Welcome to the Coliseum of my body, the last shit show before the dreck innards of Lake Erie summon you into their drown and doubt. Dread sirens. I have housed death matches in my gullet 4 times. The will of each organ to subsist the will of each organ to subsist has trumped the will of the mouthy eye to not. To plunge into the flickering dark of noxious drams, deluged liver entering the room. Watch me. I swallow swords for diversion. Come marvel at my distended esophagus, stretched too far, too many times, around the wetted dare. This spectacle of give it to me, half so I can gnaw your great head off, half so I can spit it back out. I house multitudes of predators, lions and tigers and bears sharpening their fangs for you. Oh, my dim-hearted darling, we will have to dine on your patchy chest hair and nonchalance. Applaud my lip-licking gnash as I prepare to devour you in nibbles of rib meat and man feet. Please, sugar dick, cum dumpling. Sorry, I was trying to keep a straight face for that line. I'll do it again. Sugar dick, cum dumpling. Weren't you bored, limp, holding the manicured hands at matinees? I've got your ticket, stashed in a jar of teeth, or pills with teeth. I've got it ready. Poem in which I swear less, or I don't say cum dumpling at least, and hopefully don't trip as much on my words. This is from a series or a sequence called Right Now, Gone and Going Away. Mom is trying to prove that motion lessens dread. Her hands are perpetually doing, shoveling ash from the wood stove, threading the night through an embroidery needle. The holidays have made me a boarder again in her home, an ungrateful deserter, beastly mirror of her 20s. When she comes to me with wine and says that she needs me to teach her bravery, I imagine her young and dancing, delirious, unflinching. How she must have worn her vices like sequins and discoed her body new. She tells me that her name means an inquisition. Women she hasn't seen since the 80s, since she moved to this city, they say her maiden name, say she looks good, the years good to her face, still unblemished. And always, dulcet as house cats, they say, wasn't it your brother who killed that boy? The cashier dead again, the gun reloaded, drugs pirating her brother's veins, the trigger, the body, is he still in prison, still alive? They ask, I tell her we can change what her name means. I tell her in a better version of this life, her name means maker of beautiful garments. Her name means all the light that she has made of herself. So this poem is called Giving Up the Ghost. In 2011, besides getting some cool stuff like a book deal and into Cornell, I had 2 friends hang themselves. So that's kind of the focus of the new manuscript. Giving Up the Ghost. I searched the ceiling for evidence of what's been lost. The 2 young men, my friends, still hang there by their necks. One cadaverous, coke glam academic, one beer-bellied rocker working the warehouse late shifts. both pendulums closing in upon death. In the dewy brain of morning, they have not yet been cut down, have not stopped their final swinging. I watch their tiny oscillations like a hypnotist watch. I am feeling very, like I have felt their eyes in my stomach, an unwanting so boundless it knows the terrain of my innards better than any ultrasound. I can't imagine that you too like it, being two tragedies in the same room like this. I try to remember, was there ever a time when we three creeps sat down together in the college dining hall, glared in silent disapproving unison at the overcooked noodles and canned peaches? I don't think this happened. Josh, John, gentlemen of this breakneck brigade, I have brought you here today to discuss the outer limits of failure. I learned to stack the euchre deck long before I knew much about money, except how it girded the swarming laughter of girls who shamed the good intentions of my wrong-sized, wrong-decade acid-washed jeans. My dad, he taught me to slap the best trick on the ass of the deck when I tilled the cards in and hold it there for 3 shuffles, then wait, 1 card, 2 card, 3 cards. Let the gem slide in at the 4th spot, stave off the cut with a smile, too wholesome for a cheat. Sometimes I forget my hands, I let them fix the game out of instinct. Sometimes I fail at fixing, get a partner who doesn't know jack about Hoyle or an adversary drunk with luck. The first time that I tried to lose my outsides like you two, I failed. The second and the third, wrong stacks of pills that didn't sit right in my guts. The fourth, a bluff at death, really. I suppose I should have known to switch up my play by then. Gentlemen, please don't tell me what trick finally shooed you out of your dread clothes. I'm cutting old towels into rags to dust the dead skin from my room. All you little yous flocking the light fixture. Oh, I am coming for you, fixing to shut you up for good. And one happier poem, I swear. And then I will introduce the atom. Okay. This is a poem. It's called For Hipsters Who Wear Fake Glasses. For the record, these are contacts. I wear real glasses. For hipsters who wear fake glasses. Having already taken my eyes out for the night, I cannot discern what my lover's face is doing in the dim lamplight. Mood lighting. It's called by those who can see to see the defects of another's body, of their own. Each year, the optometrist says that my capacity for unaided wonder in cheekbones and hillsides has lessened, is lessening, is moving toward nostalgia. Memory. It is Sunday. I am 9, rousing my mother from bed with coffee. Her eyes agape search my face, wandering around its edges. She misjudges the cup, scalds her right arm. My eyes, they must do that. Grapple for a focal point like a twirling ballerina. I've memorized the kitchen by its form, the coffee pot next to the good outlet, oil and vinegar on the stove top. My fear begins here. In laundry baskets and playthings, my future may leave in the living room without warning. Myopic, I will break against small unknowns. I'm trying not to lose an inch of this world. The gush of a bloody knee, the kneeling of the sun come evening, the face of a son to come in 5 years, when I will see less, but enough to know what parts of me he bears. Thank you. I don't know why this room makes me more nervous than I usually am. Okay. Adam Price. Adam Price is the kind of dude who owns a demonic cat. He is also the second biggest heartthrob guitar player of the MFA program. Shankman, sorry. I meant of the MFA cohort. Let's not get that picky. Other things about Adam, he's been published in some places, you know, like the Paris Review, the Mid-American Review, in 5 chapters, or he has work forthcoming in 5 chapters. If I was literate, I would know that. He was also a semifinalist for the 2010 Nickel Fellowship for Screenwriting, and he is and he has a degree in fiction from North Carolina. If I could speak in words, I am so sorry, Adam. Adam is an incredibly talented writer, and I just screwed up his intro, but he is really very wonderful, and this definitely the second biggest heartthrob guitar player. I can say that for sure. Adam Price.
Thanks to, I think as everybody would want to say, this program has been really amazing. And the faculty, I just think is unparalleled, the administration. Me and my wife were talking about a year ago, we had bought a Powerball ticket when it was like $500 million. And I said that, we were talking about what we would do, and I said, I realized that I'd buy a jet or something, but I wouldn't quit the program, that I would keep doing the program, which I mean is kind of amazing. I've never in my life felt that way about anything that I did, and my experience here has been really pretty unimprovable, so thanks. So I'm going to read from my novel in progress, and this is the what I think there's not too much setup necessary. This is the third chapter. It's like the backstory chapter. It's about the main character, who is a Vietnam veteran who has written for decades, has worked on a memoir that he thought was not going to get published, and he finds out that he's going to get published. So I think that's the only setup necessary. Okay. 6 months earlier, Richard was setting up at the Tamarack for his Sunday night shift when the phone rang. He sighed theatrically in the empty room and pushed up from the booth where he was having his traditional pre-shift drinks. It was the part of the shift he liked the best, the only part he liked, in fact. At this time of day, the afternoon sun slanted in through the grime-tinted windows and illuminated the untold millions of ambient dust and silica and ash particles floating in the air, like some sad little cosmos in miniature. Leonard Cohen's paper-thin hotel and its flanged wall of strings and sopranos wobbled away on the stereo. The bar, despite its state of long-neglected squalor, had a solemn, almost church-like feel. The sound of the phone broke the silence like a baby crying during a sermon. "Yeah, the Tamarack," he said. "Richard, it's Stan." "Stan who?" "Stan, your agent." "Oh, I don't have an agent. My agent said he'd done all he could for me 3 years ago, and he dropped me from his client list." "Yeah, I know, I felt bad about that." "Good. Well, so every now and then I still pass your manuscript around because I feel sorry for you." "Okay, I'm hanging up now, thanks." "Listen, and a few weeks ago, I'm at this awful cocktail party, and I'm talking to this new editor at Random House, and I say I have this war memoir by this old fart who lives in Arizona that I think is great, but I've never been able to do anything with it. And she says she'll take a look. I say, yeah, right, okay, sure. So that night, not the next week or day even, but that night at like 2 in the morning, she emails and says she loves it. And she already has the green light. Wants to get you going on a final draft, email some notes. Do you even have email? rmordeal@aol.com. Do I get a thank you? There's going to be a check coming your way, Richard. She says they think they might have a hit on their hands. Richard looked around the room. The bathroom door kicked half off its hinges, the low ceiling festooned with profanity-embossed dollar bills, the ones directly overhead reading "Cash Crew" and "Suck a Fuck Dick." The rows of dusty bottles behind the bar, the wooden bar top with its deep and uncleanable cracks which filled up with syrupy alcohol and drew flies that stank. The Megatouch machine in the corner that blooped and bleeped all night as though sympathetically mimicking the idiot babble of drunks at 1 a.m. on a Saturday. The loathsome Ersatz 50s jukebox, filled with shitty modern rock the owner thought would bring in a younger crowd. He'd expected to keep working at this place forever, until it closed or he died, growing old with it like a despised but undivorceable spouse. "Hello?" said Stan. "Are you crying?" "No, of course not. Send me whatever I need to sign." After he hung up, he really let loose, sat at a booth, and cried like a little baby. Like his baby, Cindy, when she was little, tears begetting more tears, his face a hot, smeary mess. Like the baby he was. Babby so happy. Why Babby sad? He shored himself up with a shot of Canadian Club and tried to figure out what he was feeling and why, an exercise he hadn't undertaken in years, since for years he'd always felt roughly the same way, i.e. like shit, and known why, i.e. because everything sucked. They weren't tears of happiness, though he was happy. He hadn't realized how much he'd given up, the extent to which he'd surrendered his guns. After finally delivering the finished novel, after all those years stopping and starting, after 10 rewrites, after years of promising to deliver it and not doing so, no one anywhere had shown any interest, and Stan had finally stopped returning his calls. And after that, for the last long time, Richard had stopped writing. He just hadn't had the heart, couldn't bear more disappointment, even more confirmation that the world didn't care about what he had to say. Message received. It wasn't a decision he'd made. He hadn't thrown his typewriter over a cliff or set the manuscript on fire. He'd simply stopped working. The scope of his life had narrowed to making enough money to feed himself and his dog, keep himself in booze, pay the cable bill, waking up, going to work, and going to sleep. It was a kind of death. After 2 more meditative Canadian clubs, he called the owner of the Tamarack, an aging trust fund kid named Stu, and quit. An hour before open, "Thanks, asshole." It sounded like Stu was outside, probably on one of the many verdant, manicured golf courses that marred the greater Phoenix area and gulped his scarce water like sunsick hounds. Stu was pretty worthless in general. He was utterly lost on the very rare occasions he set foot behind the bar, but the fact that he spent all of his copious free time golfing was the biggest single strike against him in Richard's mind. "Why don't you do everyone a favor and just not open anymore?" said Richard. "Hey, why don't you fuck yourself?" said Stu, "and don't show up expecting your last paycheck. Not gonna happen." "All right, good luck on the back 9. The door locked behind him, and Richard walked out into the evening heat of Arizona in May, like an inmate released from prison on a surprise parole. The book was getting published. He didn't know how much money was coming, but he was willing to gamble that it was enough. If it was only $100, he could take that to the nearest reservation casino and put it all on 27 Red. He drove to a grocery store and bought a magnum of Moet, then drove to the north side of South Mountain and turned up an access road. The road petered out next to a TV antenna station about halfway up the hill, and he parked in the runoff beside a hiking trail next to a giant no parking sign. He walked slowly up the diagonally